Good morning, everyone. I'm Anand from GAVS Technologies. Welcome to GAVS webinar series on digital transformation. Today's webinar topic is on significance of customer experience in digital transformation. Before we introduce the speakers to you, some logistics so that we need to look at. The webinar has series of poll questions and survey at the end. I request you to participate in the poll questions and the survey, and there will be a lucky winner selected out of this, and the winner will be posted in our next webinar next month. So please feel free to participate in all the polls and survey, and stand a chance to win the contest, or stand a chance to win this. Today's webinar, today's webinar is hosted by Kerrie Hoffman, who is the strategic advisor to GAVS Technologies, and Sri Chaganty, who is the CTO at GAVS. Over to you, Kerrie.
Thanks, Anand. Once again, I'm Kerrie Hoffman. I am a strategic advisor for GAVS Technologies and your host for this webinar. In addition to my role as strategic advisor at GAVS, I'm an owner of Focal Point Business Coaching for small and mid-sized businesses, and co-founder and principal for Get Digital Velocity, enabling large enterprises to move to frictionless business. I specialize in business growth and transformation, and I am passionate about digital acceleration. I have over 30 years of corporate experience in multiple industries and functions, including business unit CIO for several business units of Johnson & Johnson and Johnson Controls. I also held several roles at Aurora Healthcare. So today we're going to talk about the significance of customer experience in digital transformation. One of the key changes businesses make when they move from traditional business and business models to digital business has to do with customer centricity and creating an awesome customer experience. In traditional business, there is a lot of focus on the customer. However, traditional businesses have an outside or an inside out approach. Work is done in this waterfall approach through department silos to move the product from R&D to manufacturing to supply chain and finally to the customer. Once a customer moves from traditional to digital, they have an outside-in approach where there is this intense focus on customer experience. They know the customer so well that they understand the customer's issues, and they're willing to modify or add products and services to solve the customer issues. There's a very agile approach where people work primarily in cross-functional teams focused on a customer microsegment or even an individual customer for large accounts. So there really is a significant difference. And today we're going to dive deeper into customer experience. So it's my pleasure to welcome our speaker for today, Sri Chaganty. Sri is CTO for GAVS Technologies. Sri's prior role was CTO and co-founder of AppInsure, a Silicon Valley-based startup, which is now part of GAVS. Sri has worked in the area of data communications and internet technologies for the past 35 years and introduced more than a dozen products into the US, Japanese, and European markets. Previously, Sri was CEO and founder of CES, delivering global consulting and IT services and solutions. Sri was also co-founder and chief technical officer of Hollentech Corporation, San Jose. Prior to founding Hollentech, Sri was director of software at the Data Communication Systems division of NEC America. Sri holds 5 patents in the area of high availability and clustering, as well as an MS in computer engineering from Drexel University. Welcome, Sri.
Thank you, Kerrie. Thank you for that introduction and great insight from you on the customer centricity and the importance of it. Greetings and thank you for all those who are in attendance. I'm Sri Chaganty, CTO of GAVS, and allow me to start with a brief introduction to GAVS and about this webinar. GAVS has been a pioneer in introducing AI-driven machine learning solutions, working with IIT Chennai for digital transformation well before those terms became popular and fashionable. With global presence and Fortune 500 customers, GAVS is continuing to innovate and provide solutions promoting AI ops and digital transformation. Our webinar today is not a sales pitch. It is an informational webinar, the second one in such series of informational webinars that GAVS is presenting, focusing on our learnings and vision, and also soliciting your input and opinions about the technology and the growth of it. As such, this would be a very interactive webinar with 4 polls during the webinar. After the webinar ends and after the QA session, you will be asked to participate in a survey regarding this webinar. Please participate in that survey as your input will guide us on the topics we need to cover in these series. We will start off with an overview of our last webinar, where we covered what digital transformation is all about, what is driving such transformations, what are enabling that transformation to happen, and the need for having zero outages within an organization for the success of that transformation. Let me share the results of the poll that we had at the last webinar, where when we asked our attendees to provide their input in terms of what are the challenges that they're facing and what kind of digital process journey they're in, and what they think about the customer experience in this digital transformation. As you can see, the results clearly indicated that the biggest challenge they had was the legacy technology, and many of those who were in attendance last time said their companies started this digital transformation journey, and for most of them, it was the customer experience and customer needs that was the most important thing as part of this digital transformation process. Now, you know what is the most famous icon in the world? Universally understood? Please wait. This is, first of all of us as customers, for any digital consumers, our experience with interaction. This is the first experience we have when we interact, whether it is a website, whether it is a signal that you're waiting on your mobile, whatever it is, the waiting part of it is the experience that you get. However great the subsequent experience is, if this please wait lingers for more than 4 seconds, you have already formed an opinion. The initial taste of it doesn't sit well with you. So this concept of waiting is being erased from the lexicon of our lifestyles, because of that, any unpredictable responses or poor user experience is going to have a direct impact on the productivity and also on the loyalty, because in this digital transformation age, there is no customer loyalty unless the experience is consistent, seamless, personalized. Now let us see how we got there. 10 years ago, when iPhone was introduced, we did not see that these digital technologies will be revolutionizing the way we think, the way we act, and we expect to interact with any digital media. This mobile revolution has opened up the doors for this app development to happen all over the place, that you today with your fingertips can accomplish many of the tasks that needed a lot of personalized time to be spent. So this empowerment has actually created digitally conscious customers. The generation that has come after 2007, of course, automatically assumed that these the concept of digital consciousness is part of their DNA. And those before us, starting to see the flexibility and convenience factor, have become very digitally conscious, whether knowingly or unknowingly. So that has led to the shift in our expectations in terms of what we want to be accomplished with our fingertips. This basically has created multiple integrations across multiple platforms to provide a multi-channel experience. And this is now starting to blur the difference between an internal customer and external customer. You experience a great customer interaction or user experience when you're dealing with an app on your phone. You want everything to be as easy as ordering a ride from Uber. And that is how we are starting to tune as consumers. Now, as external customers, when we have that experience, it is becoming very, very evident that we expect the same kind of experience when we're dealing with internal operations within our organizations. So keeping my promise that this is going to be an interactive session, let me launch the first poll. And every poll is going to be for 1 minute. And please participate in the poll, as this would be a good feedback for us to kind of share with you next time when we meet. So I'm going to be launching the first poll. And here we're asking you if you agree that within an organization, a customer should be treated as if they're external customers. Please participate. About 20 seconds into this, I see about 60% of you voted. I'll be sharing the results of the poll after the poll closes. I'll be closing the poll in about 10 seconds. And the rest of 30%, please provide your input. All right, I'm closing the poll and I'll share the results with you. As you can see, majority of you agree that the internal customers have to be treated exactly like external customers. And those of you who disagreed, would be a great idea later on when you share with your questions or your comments as to why you see that there should be a differentiation between internal customers and external customers. Now, moving on, I'm going to share with you some of the investments. What is driving the investments that are driving? They are all based on the customer experience. So if you look at some of the predictions that have come about, more than 40% of all data analytics projects will relate to customer experience by 2020, says Gartner. And that is because there are going to be 20.4 billion devices that are going to be connected through IoT. And of the 20.4 billion devices, the data is flowing in and there is a consumer at end of that device, either virtual or physical. 2/3 of all customer experience initiatives will be using IT by 2022. So about 67% of all customer experience initiatives will be about how you experience a service that is being provided to you. And by 2020 again, Gartner says 25% of the customer service operations will use virtual customer assistants, technologies like chatbots, which is a huge increase given that it was at 2% in 2017. And when you take that 20.4 billion devices and the data that we're collecting, it is not a surprising fact that 31% of the companies, according to Accenture, are going to be investing in artificial intelligence in order to get ahead of competition. And IDC predicted last year that there is going to be a 44% jump in the AI spending. So this basically shows you that the amount of data that is being collected and the analytics that are performing, the underlying factor is the customer experience, and that is most significant factor in terms of determining how your digital transformation is going to succeed. So what are the current initiatives in digital transformation, and where is it in terms of the customer experience? As Kerrie was mentioning earlier on, most of the customer satisfaction or customer experience initiatives are all focused on external customers. Of course, as external customers, we're benefiting from that today. However, the lack of training for the internal customers is a big thing that is contributing to some of these digital transformation initiatives to fail. There is a mismatch between the adoption of innovation, which is outward facing, compared to adoption of innovation inward facing. We are going more and more agile, and we are creating more and more on-demand services, which is creating tremendous amount of chaos in terms of being able to support it. And all of these initiatives, because they are focused on the external customers, the internal chaos is something that is affecting, because the internal customers are not tuned to the expectations, or not tuned in terms of not expectations, but in terms of being able to support such external customer experience initiatives. And again, silos are not integrated, and as a result, the customer doesn't see you as a siloed organization. The customer sees you as one single entity. And when they see you as a single entity, they expect that the organization is going to perform as if it is a single entity. Since the silos are not integrated and the walls are not broken down, there is a mismatch between the internal customer's experience and external customer experience, which is contributing to this chaos. Finally, all of the digital transformation initiatives are data-driven. They do not have a human insight. So data-driven insights is what is driving them. And as in the previous slide, as we've seen, the majority of the investments are going into the artificial intelligence, machine learning, because there is tremendous of data that is pouring in, and we have to make intelligence out of it. But the missing piece in these initiatives is the human insight as to how that experience is. So some of the customer interactions, or the interactions that you have with some of the apps, like Uber or others, they have taken that into consideration, and they're more successful than others. But one important fact that is missing, or is lack of understanding, I would say, is digital transformation is not really going to be customer experience driving force. It's going to play a vital role, but it is going to play a vital role as a wingman, not as a driver. And so that mismatch is what is happening in the current initiatives in the digital transformation. So with that, I would like to go and launch my second poll. And here, what we would like to understand is, where is your organization in terms of enhancing customer experience? Don't differentiate between internal or external, I mean, the answers provided there are basically to say, are you just focused on external, or is it a holistic approach? So please participate. This will go on for a minute, and 15 seconds into it, I see about 40% of you participated. Would really appreciate if others also weigh in. I'm going to close the poll in 2 seconds. Thanks for everyone who participated. And here are the results of about 70% of the people who and the attendees who participated in the poll. This is an interesting finding. While in the first poll you said that internal customer satisfaction should be equivalent to that of external, 60% of you agree that your organizations are focused both on external and internal customers. Very interesting stat, because the internal customer experience focus 18% as expected. The external customers, 23% of you are saying that we are only focusing on the external customers. That 60% is what the change that needs to happen for the digital transformations to be successful, because we need to include the internal customer initiatives at the same level of importance that we would do for external customer experiences. So moving on, talking about an internal customer experience, I'm actually taking some of the stats that I shared in our last webinar. When an application is down, companies are losing money, of course, but that's one aspect of it. They're also creating a population within the organizations that is getting disenchanted. Many times you hear that, well, this application at this time of the hour is going to be slow. Not only does that affect the productivity, but it also sets a bar that is much lower. Can you imagine if you were to have a website where you're selling something and say at 1 o'clock it doesn't work? And then the most important thing is, when these outages happen, the amount of time it takes to react to them, because there is no proactivity involved, is again a huge black hole, or I would say black mark, in terms of customer experience. Now, from internally, something is an outage that takes 15 minutes. You might say, I can't use that particular business process, but that doesn't mean that you're also subconsciously creating an impression about that business process. And enterprise IT teams, they repeated incidents. So it could be a different scenario, but the characteristics of the incidents are similar. They might have rolled out a new service, and that service might misbehave or not behave according to the definition of what you want it to do. And that again happens to another service. And these repetitive incidents are more, 50% of the companies, incidents have occurred earlier, they're going on repeating it. And there is no automation employed there for us to kind of arrest those things, so that we can focus on how effectively we could introduce new services without hitch or a glitch. Outages are not just, as I mentioned earlier on, revenue loss. Outages also contribute to the poor customer experience. And in this age where I was talking to somebody from T-Mobile on the other day, and he was telling me that their CEO is on Twitter 24/7. And if any customer, an example he gave, one store in Boston was stuck because an API call was not working and the cash register's door was not opening. And he was waiting in line for 10 minutes and he tweeted about it. And 15 minutes later, the CEO was calling the IT department asking them what is happening. That is the kind of attention the customer experience is getting from the top management of very customer focused organizations. Because they know such outages not only result in less revenues, but also contribute to that poor customer experience. So let's move on. What does it take? Essentials for enhancing the customer experience, irrespective of whether they're outside or inside. First and foremost, we got to measure and create a baseline. What do we have to measure? We have to measure all the touch points that the customer is going to have. Again, these customers' touch points will be intersecting with those of internal customers and external customers. Be able to provide a baseline of what is the usage of this. We need to track and identify where optimizations can be done. Very rarely these days do you hear that, hey, your website is not coming up. But once you get there, if the subsequent transactions are not as good as your web page coming up, then of course you already started forming opinion about that. So tracking and optimizing these transactions, finding out where the bottlenecks are, learning how those bottlenecks are actually happening, and being able to see from a pattern that I've established using machine learning techniques to be able to predict such things so that we can prioritize what needs to be fixed immediately and automate as much as we can. If these are the most essential steps that are needed, and if we can implement it with a holistic approach of this is not just for external customers, this is both for external and internal customers, then the outages I'm talking about are going to be minimized. So that journey towards that zero outages has to start with discovering what you have, being able to monitor what you have, being able to analyze and predict from what you're getting by monitoring the different silos across the silos, and then in a position to be able to remediate that without manual intervention. Because the weakest link are the human beings. When you take that, the ability to ingest that data in whatever shape and form it is, and correlate those so that we actually can focus on and prioritize on what needs to be attended to. And being able to find out, when you track, being able to find out what is actually the root cause, identifying that by various machine learning methods, whether it's supervised or unsupervised learning, and then being able to have that actionable insight so that you can automate such incidents. When you actually accomplish the zero outages is when the customer experience, irrespective of internal or external, is going to enhance. A methodology, a platform for this ingestion of data coming from various monitoring ways so that we could discover what business processes make the business run, being able to take all of that data, filter it for intelligence, and then being able to identify the trends so that we can find out the root cause of what is happening for I would say degraded performance, and being able to take automatic remediations with that insights so that the outages are eliminated and the customer experience becomes a seamless and personified, enjoyable experience. With that, let me launch my third poll. And here, we would like to get your input on the importance of zero outages in this journey of digital transformation to accomplish enhanced customer experience. So this will go on for another 50 seconds. Please participate. About 50% of you have already cast your votes. When we talk about zero outages, the important thing that we need to remember is we will never be able to accomplish that zero outages. But if it is not an outage, and if it is something that we can actually predict and correct, that is what we are targeting. So before I close this for in next 5 seconds, the other 20% of the people who have not voted would appreciate if you can weigh in with your opinions. All right, I'll be closing this poll now and share the results with you. Those are not a surprise here. Majority of you agree that zero outages is the first step for enhancing customer experience. And that 17% of the people who did not agree with that, I definitely would like to solicit your input as to how customer experience is going to be enhanced when you have repetitive outages. So let me hide the results and move on. The holistic approach that has to be taken for enhancing the customer experience. We need to understand the business process inventory. It is easier said than done, because when we are starting all these initiatives from an external customer focus and putting all these business processes that are agile, that are changing on daily basis, having that inventory and having the knowledge of how dynamically these business processes are expanding or contracting is a very important part to understand in this digital transformation journey. We need to understand what is the demand and usage of these processes. Who is using them? When are they using them? How much are they using them? What is the effectiveness of the processes? Do you have 100 processes that could be consolidated into one or two that could be more effective? And what is the impact it is having on the business, in the overall business? Because you cannot measure something that you don't know exists. So in order to understand what has to be improved from a customer experience point of view in this digital transformation process, we need to understand the business processes. We need to understand how they're being used, what the demand they have, how effective are they, and what impact are they having on the business. When you take that and combine it with that zero outage concept I'm talking about, we should be looking at the information that we're collecting from multiple sources, how, and then filter that to derive it, and the governing law that should be the learning process when you employ your machine learning or artificial intelligence is what business processes are getting affected. When I have a platform, when I have a solution that basically takes that and just not correlates and provides me, okay, you're having a bad day, but why am I having a bad day and how can I fix it? And can you start letting me know if I'm going to have a bad day ahead of time? If such a solution is actually in place where you could see how the business processes are getting affected and what preventive actions can be taken to correct them, then automatically the customer experience is going to enhance. And as I said earlier on, digital transformation is not a direct contributor to customer experience, but acts like a wingman. And this digital transformation process, when you achieve that zero outage, is when the customer experience is going to be enhanced. So the significance of customer experience in digital transformation is that it, whether it, even though it's acting like a wingman as a support system, it is the vehicle that is going to provide that. It is not the result. And according to McKinsey, majority of the digital transformation processes fail because they kind of put this customer experience as an outcome and build around it. And that strategy, because it is very hard for taking all the business processes and trying to drive them from an experience point of view. But if you have this approach of where the target is, if I can accomplish zero outages, and in the process of this digital transformation, if that is the goal, then customer experience automatically becomes a byproduct of this transformation. With this, I'll launch my last poll of this webinar. And we would like to understand from you where you are in your organization, in terms of that discovery of all the business processes, the demand on them, how effective are they, and how efficient are they being used for the business purposes. 30 seconds into the poll. We have about 50%. So this is an important question that we are seeking your input from, because as part of these informational webinars, the next webinar is going to be focusing on the significance of discovery in this digital transformation. Thank you. I'm going to be closing this poll now and share the results with you. As you can see and expect, the 100% discovery is not in place. When that is not in place, your digital transformation journey is not complete. The fair and average basically tells me that I have partial visibility. And again, you cannot measure what you do not know that exists. And when you actually do that, when you actually discover that, is when you actually can identify which business processes are important for you to enhance. And you can employ this zero outage I'm talking about for those business processes so that the customer experience, irrespective of internal or external, is going to be enhanced tremendously. So in the last section of this webinar, I just want to introduce to you how we at GAVS are helping our customers in terms of this journey towards zero outages. We offer a zero incident framework called ZIF. It's a platform, incorporates artificial intelligence, machine learning technologies for proactively detecting potential outages and remediate them before they pop up. The objective of the platform is to help enterprises become zero incident enterprises. And let me be very quick to jump and clarify that what we mean by zero incidents. Zero incidents does not mean that we're going to have no incidents. The goal is to zero those incidents that are creating the outages, that are repetitive in nature, so that you can focus on new challenges and focus on new processes to enhance that would make the customer experience across the organization, internal, external, meet the objectives of seamless, enjoyable, and personified. As part of that flat platform, a very modularly architected platform, we offer the discovery I was talking about and being able to monitor so that you could measure and baseline, being able to analyze and predict so that you can track and you can prioritize what needs to be addressed, and being able to put in automated remediations in place so that you can provide the same service levels for all the business processes within your organization, whether they are internally focused or externally focused. So, in summary, the customer experience, irrespective of whether they're internal customers or external customers, starts from the fact that we have to aim for a zero incident enterprise, putting in the solutions that are required that will discover not just the infrastructure and servers and services, business processes, what they're dependent upon, infrastructure that is supporting it, being able to monitor it, being able to ingest the data from various sources so that we actually can analyze that data to see how those business processes are going to get affected and be able to take the remediative actions that are required in order to maintain that service level should be the goal and will be the means for enhancing the customer experience. And GAVS, as a technology provider, as an IP-led organization, is contributing to this effort by providing that modular solutions to our customers. Thank you very much. I will now give it to Kerrie for question and answer session.
Thank you, Shri, for those awesome insights. If you would like to ask a question, please use the question panel, which is located on the right-hand side of your screen. If you don't see the question panel, it might be minimized. Simply click on the arrow on the icon ribbon, and then you'll see questions, and you can click on the little arrow to open the question panel. So Shri, while we're waiting for some questions to come in, you know, technology is accelerating at this exponential rate, but human adoption is falling behind. And I think there's a number of things that we need to do to drive higher adoption. But one of the ones that I love to highlight is it does take an awesome customer experience to drive adoption of new digital business models. So if you think about it, like who would have imagined 5 to 10 years ago that we'd start getting in a stranger's personal car for a ride to the airport, right?
Absolutely.
You know, but we do that when we summon a Lyft or an Uber. And I think it's the customer experience part of those digital business models that drives us to switch.
Absolutely. Well, you know, the convenience is directly proportional to adoption. When the first mobile phones came in early 90s, they were very bulky, but people carried them around. Why? I mean, you probably remember the huge laptops that we were lugging around, which were probably weighing about 30 pounds.
Oh, yeah.
Convenience, right? So
right.
I do see one question. Is it possible to come up with zero outages? Well, I mentioned to you, when we talked about zero outages, we are talking about those that are repeating over and over again, and those that we can predict that can be avoided. Yes, that is possible, and that is what Gavs is providing with our Ziff platform.
Yeah, I think that's important that it's the repeating ones, right? As you create new technology and get new things out there, there's going to be issues that come up. And I think people are tolerant of issues that come up with new stuff, especially the early adopters, as long as those issues aren't repeated, right?
Absolutely. If my every call gets dropped, then of course I wouldn't be taking calls on my mobile, right? So, but once in a
Yeah,
while, I
exactly.
can live with it.
Absolutely. So here's another question. Is Zip ready to integrate with critical systems like SAP and Salesforce?
Yes, the answer is yes. And when I talked about the ingestion of data from multiple sources, we're agnostic to the data source. And whatever information that is required for you to enhance your business processes, we can digest that data and provide the root cause analysis using our AI platform.
Yeah, so one of the things I appreciate about the platform, especially having been a business unit CIO in the past, is it helps clarify the root cause of where those alerts are coming from. And it stops a lot of that finger pointing of, the network team says it's the application team says it's the infrastructure. It's like a,
Yes,
a vicious circle, right?
yeah, absolutely, Kerry. And that's where the silos not coming down is a big issue, right? So when those silos don't come down, and if you have a service that is quote unquote down, what is it contributing to? It is contributing to a poor customer experience.
Yeah, so the mean time to remediate can really be reduced when you understand and can see through the machine learning and artificial intelligence where the root cause comes from.
And in one of the slides, when we kind of pointed out that it takes about 15 minutes for somebody to identify that, why is it? Humans are the weakest link. We are the weakest link in this process. And if you can automate that.
Absolutely.
Well,
So we have another question. Why is Zip especially only on outages?
it's zero incident framework from an I identified one aspect of outages. Now, if I'm ingesting, because we are talking about customer experience, but if you really look at the platform, you're absolutely right that look beyond the time when you actually can conquer this outage problem and have a great customer experience. The insights that you start collecting in terms of the patterns of usage, the demand of usage, I said these are all important. And how do we actually provide that elasticity from a capacity planning point of view, from an onboarding point of view? All these things you can actually, that intelligence, that data as it learns over a period of time is not just focused on outages. And thanks for whoever has brought it up. Is I was focusing on the outages because we are talking about the customer experience. But when you go beyond that, the information is something uh, where you actually can mine that data and get a lot more insights on to how your overall business can improve, not just a single business process here and there.
Yeah, and the Ziff platform is looking at all of the alerts that are taking place, and there actually are quite a few alerts that happen before an incident or outage occurs. So it can point to where those incidents are happening and correct them before there's an incident or an outage. Yeah. So another question. This is like preventative maintenance approach rather than breakdown maintenance.
Well, of course, yeah. Don't you want to be proactive? Don't you want to fix? You don't even want to get into a situation where you're talking about fixing. Yes, this is very proactive approach, and the technology has evolved to a point where we can use to platforms like Ziff to accomplish that.
So let me ask you another question. What are the known limitations of Ziff at this time?
Well, we are when you talk about from the uh, perspective of, we are not trying to boil the ocean. We are focusing on the AI ops. We are focusing on those things that matter the most in terms of in getting that operations up and running all the time. We are focusing on providing you a Ziff command center, we call it ZCC, that you can have anywhere in the world, hopefully in our centers, where once you can address through this AI ops the smooth running of your IT operations. So the limitations when it comes to, we are focusing on the IT operations part of it, but the underlying platform is something that we could replicate to address other problems, which is not what we're focusing today, but definitely something that could be applied. But the limitation is the limitation of the applicability of the platform, not necessarily limitation in terms of what I talked about in trying to get that data from millions of sources and being able to correlate and reduce the noise and provide the predictive analytics based on machine learning. There are no limitations there.
Awesome. I have a couple more questions, but I just want to remind people, if you want to ask a question, use the question panel, which is on the right-hand side of your screen. So a couple of questions on where we can find more information. So will the slides be available after? And is there a YouTube video that can be shared with people's business leaders?
Absolutely. After this, all of attendees will be getting a link to this webinar video. And yes, you can share it. Absolutely. Well, I think we can wrap up the webinar so that, please, you'll have a couple of minutes to address our survey questions at the end. We want to thank everyone who has participated and attended this webinar and participated in the polls. Please do us a favor and participate in the survey afterwards. Kerrie, any closing thoughts?
No, just thank you, Shri, for your presentation. And I wish everybody a great evening and day.
Thank you, and have a good day.